Bai Lu has traveled through. I still put it into my own unfinished book. In a major female protagonist novel called The Strongest Female Immortal. All Men Cultivate Together. She became the first female supporting role in the book. Since ancient times, supporting role have been canon fodder. Besides, she is still the first female supporting character in the main female lead article. Isn't this a natural green leaf? No matter how hard she works, how excellent and holy she is, how good her family background is, how friendly her teacher is, how stunning her talent is, and how perfect her character is. It is all to highlight the female lead's efforts, excellence, holiness, and perfection when broken. As a mother, she trembles and shivers faced with a domineering and awe-inspiring male protagonist who seems to be reincarnated from outside the realm, faced with an unparalleled female lead with countless opportunities and adorable pets, faced with the fierce and evil villains who are eyeing the enemy with all their might. Each one was a net she had personally woven. She is almost hopeless. Suddenly discovered. Ha! How could she still carry such golden fingers? Is this her benefit as an author? And she seems to have arrived early. There are 30.7 years left until the plot begins. Keywords of the novel. A nun supporting only wants to be beautiful alone without pop-ups. A nun supporting only wants to be beautiful alone. Download the complete text, and a nun supporting only wants to be beautiful alone. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Wearing books. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wearing books by family. Bai Lu has traveled through. When she found out that her father's name was Bai Xiong, her mother's name was Qinglu, and she was still called Bai Lu. She knew she had traveled. Wearing it into an unfinished novel called The Strongest Female Immortal in the World. All men and cultivators work together. And the author of this unfinished novel is herself. The reason why she remembers so deeply is that this novel is still her first novel ever created. Although it was unfinished, she also put in the most effort. Especially the name Bai Lu, as the first female supporting character of this book, is the same as her name. That's because when she appeared, she happened to be Calvin and couldn't think of any other name, so she had to use her own instead. Unexpectedly, one word became a prophecy, and I actually became this Bai Lu. Looking at her small hands and feet, Bai Lu was shocked and panicked, but also breathed a slight sigh of relief. Knowing that the plot has not yet begun, I am still early to appear. Miss, the 100 Flowers Fairy has sent someone to wait with the homeowner in the living room. At this moment, a little maid walked into her room and timidly said, "The 100 Flowers Fairy." Bai Lu was taken aback for a moment. It was only then that I remembered that this dragon-like name was the master of this identity. Because in the original book, Bai Lu, as the female lead's biggest competitor for the male lead, was already a well-known Bai Lu fairy from the very beginning, highly respected in the cultivation world. So, when she appeared, her mentor was just a passing remark. After all, this character is ready to be portrayed as a major villain, and compared to other Playboy canon fodder, the threat of the first female pairing with the female lead must mostly come from her own. Her family background is not important anymore. However, since being able to become the female lead and obtain the male lead is the biggest obstacle on the road. Her configuration in all aspects is not too bad. For example, she comes from the Bai family. It is a renowned immortal cultivation family in the world of cultivation, with the ancestors of the Golden Elixir period sitting in the clan. Even ordinary sects dare not provoke them. And she has a rare heavenly spirit root in the cultivation world, and has long been worshipped under the Kunshan sect, one of the 9 major immortal sects in the cultivation world. Only after the age of 12, can one enter the mountain gate directly and become the disciple of Yuanying Diwu Baihua fairy. These are the natural necessary auras of the first supporting role. After all, only with a good family background, profound teacher, peerless talent, amazing appearance, and flawless personality, can you become a qualified supporting role. Is it only when the protagonist snatches the male lead and slaps him again that he feels satisfied? As the mother of this book, she is now trembling. Do evil deeds. At first glance, the name of this book is The Protagonist. What is the protagonist? That is, throughout the book, all men will revolve around the female lead. Even if the two sides have opposing positions at the beginning, they will still be convinced and eventually transform into Tengu in repeated conflicts with the female lead. And all the female creatures inside will pale under the halo of the protagonist. As the supporting actress in the book, she was born to set off the green leaves of the female lead. Her excellence, nobility, and sanctity are only meant to highlight the excellence, nobility, and sanctity of the female protagonist in her victory. And she is also the first supporting actress in the book. The biggest villain is destined to have a tragic end. The difference is just how miserable it is. She not only needs to hone the love between the male and female protagonists, but also become a stepping stone on their path to success. And in this kind of writing, the sweeter the male and female leads, the more cruel the male and female leads become. Although the plot is cliché, it's not satisfying after trying it out. How can a little street thug like her avoid vulgarity? She wrote quite well at that time. But when fairy tales become a reality, only then did I realize. This world is just a fairy tale for one person. The cruelty faced by others is always more tragic than reality. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Worshipping Kunshan Sect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Worshipping Kunshan Sect by Family Hall. When Bai Lu followed the little maid to the hall, she immediately saw the two people sitting at the top. A middle-aged man with white temples and weathered eyes, and a dignified middle-aged woman. As the head of the family, the father sat honestly next to him, not daring to breathe. Ancestor, Yaoshi Zhenren, Luer has arrived. Seeing Bai Lu enter the hall, Bai Xiong's eyes lit up and he quickly turned to the two people above him. The middle-aged beauty named Yaoshi carefully examined the girl in front of her, and finally revealed a smile on her tense face. Not bad, indeed. Zhongling is handsome, with jade bones naturally formed, truly worthy of being the root of the heavenly spirit. By Dao Yu, since Bai Lu has arrived, I should take her back to Kunshan Sect to report to Master Baihua. I won't bother you anymore, he said, standing up and facing the middle-aged man next to him. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "You're welcome, the fairy's business is the most important. Yaoshi Dao friend, come often when you have time, and Bai will definitely be the one sweeping the bed to welcome you." Then he said to Bai Lu again, "Luer, when you arrive at Kunshan Sect, you should listen to your master's words and practice diligently. Don't fall into the name of my Lingxiao Bai family." "Yes." Bai Lu obediently replied. The ancestor of the Bai family nodded in satisfaction, then took off the ring from his hand and handed it to Bai Lu in front of the real Yaoshi. "I don't know how long it will take for you to return home. As we bid farewell, I will give you a small gift, which may be helpful to you." "Thank you, ancestor." Taking the ring, Bai Lu thanked him for his kindness. Later, Bai Xiong reminded her again and explained some things. In fact, the Bai family has been preparing for this day for 12 years, and what needs to be explained has already been explained. After repeated reminders and instructions from Bai Xiong, she followed Yao Shi to sit on a large blue bird, left the Bai family, and flew high into the sky. Sitting on the back of the big bird, the Lingxiao city behind her was constantly fading away, and Bai Lu's mood was somewhat complicated. Fingers touched the 3 storage bags in their arms. One was given by my mother last night, one was given by my father before leaving, and the other was a token of goodwill from the Bai family. 3 storage bags, bulging and filled with spiritual stones, talismans, and various essential items for cultivation. It is also filled with the care of a pair of parents and the expectations of a family. At this moment, Bai Lu is not the stunning Bai Lu fairy in The Strongest Fairy, but more like a student who is about to travel and carries the hope of the whole village. Turning her head to look at the already small Lingxiao city, the Bai family had disappeared from her sight, and the girl's gaze was somewhat hazy. At this moment, her feeling was incredibly real. She realized that this was not just the fantasy world in the book. The people, things, objects, and beasts in front of her all had their own warmth and thoughts, and objectively existed. She lived in a familiar yet unfamiliar world. Yao Shi glanced at the girl beside her and spoke calmly. Stepping onto the path of immortality is not ordinary. Although separation and sorrow are also common, after practicing for a long time, you will find that in the mortal world, everything is illusory. A faint voice came to Bai Lu's ears, and she knew that the other person thought she was in a state of separation and was trying to persuade her. But she didn't know that she was inspired by a similar scene, feeling nostalgic for another world. She understands the truth, but still feels it. The sitting bird flies quickly, traveling thousands of miles a day as if it were idle. Bai Lu recognized this as a flying spirit beast of Kunshan sect, named. It has the bloodline of the ancient divine beast Qinglu, a white neck and red beak, ice blue feathers all over its body, and 3 long tail feathers floating in the wind. At first, in order to write these settings, she searched through online materials and wrote a full page. She knew nothing about the real person next to her, Yao Shi, because there was no such person in her book. 8 out of 10 are characters like passers-by in the book. Therefore, she is particularly vigilant. Once again, confirm that this world is not as simple as described in the book. The descriptions in the book are all from the protagonist's perspective. In reality, everyone is a living person, and each person's life unfolds into a book. For this world, the attitude of the creator is not good, she needs to maintain reverence. Otherwise, if one accidentally encounters the protagonist, they will die at the hands of any passerby. She didn't die unjustly. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Martial Arts of Master Uncle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Martial Arts of Master Uncle under the rapid flight of the chick. Kunshan Sect is soon in sight. That is a vast expanse of mountains hidden deep in the clouds and mist, with towering peaks and flowing waterfalls. Among the peaks of Tsuewei, towering palaces stand one after another. Golden and magnificent, shrouded in immortal clouds. Under the gray sky, streams of light occasionally flashed by, as cultivators flew their swords. Bai Lu followed Yao Shi into the mountain gate, and the author was also stunned by the scene of the immortal family in front of her. What we hear and see now, magnificent and magical, cannot be described in words. For such a world, she felt even more awe in her heart. Secretly reminding oneself that this is not a novel, but the real world. At this moment, a riot came from ahead. Many cultivators stopped in front of a large hall, and the atmosphere of discussion was lively. Have you heard about it? Qin Shi went out this time and swept the Grey Hill with 1 sword each, killing a Demon King-level demon ghost. Oh my goodness! Demons and ghosts gather and disperse invisibly, they are the best at hiding and feed on their souls, which is extremely difficult to deal with. Even cultivators in the same realm find it difficult to escape. Unexpectedly, Qin Shi was able to step up and kill, truly the first pride of our Kunshan sect in nearly 1,000 years. The surroundings of this world are enveloped by eerie and mysterious grey mist, and demons and ghosts are creatures born in the grey mist. According to their strength, they are divided into ordinary, dangerous, and demon king, respectively, for cultivators to practice qi, build foundations, and use golden pills. Due to the fact that demons and ghosts live in the mist of grey all year round, they are composed of mist that accumulates, disperses, and becomes invisible to the heart. When they gather, they become like demons, devouring blood and flesh, and when they disperse, they become mist, plundering their souls. They are one of the most difficult creatures to entangle in the cultivation world. In the same realm, when a cultivator encounters demons and ghosts, it is difficult for them to gain benefits. Like a demon king level demon ghost, the weakest is also equivalent to a cultivator in the later stage of the golden elixir. No wonder the disciples of Kunshan's sect were amazed when they heard the news. Even the real person Yaoshi looked surprised when he heard the sound and smiled. Qin Jr. brother is indeed brave and progressive. He has achieved such a feat since he first entered the Golden Dan, and I am not as good as him. The girl next to her suddenly looked a bit strange upon hearing these words. If you guessed correctly, the Qin martial uncle and Qin Jr. brother mentioned by these people should be the male protagonist of this book, Qin Wushang. At the age of 12, he practiced qi, at the age of 18, he built a foundation, and at 30, he formed a pill. He was a disciple of the supreme elder of Kunshan's sect and the youngest cultivator in the history of the 9 immortal schools to form a pill. The only known existence of the Holy Spirit root in the world of cultivation. She can be regarded as the son of luck in this world, the biological son created by the author. And she also knows that the other party is a reincarnation of the starry sky mighty, and with the help of the female protagonist, she will awaken her previous life Suhui. Recalling these terrifying resumes, the girl's mouth twitched. These were added by her own hands one by one. If it weren't for the ending of the novel, I don't know what incredible background she would have added to him. Ah, Qin Shishu. He's out now. At this moment, a sudden scream came from the crowd ahead, and a tall and slender figure walked out of the main hall ahead. That is a man who can make all things pale. Dressed in black, with a dark robe tied around his waist, the green silk flowing in the wind behind him. His handsome and upright nose bridge, handsome and resolute lines, and a ray of sunlight pouring down his forehead further enhance his majestic and magnificent demeanor. He still carried the remaining power of slaying demons and ghosts, and no one dared to approach him with a fierce aura. Wherever they passed, there was silence, but everyone's eyes were filled with admiration. Bai Lu looked at the man who walked out of the golden light with complex eyes. She made this up. Suddenly, the man seemed to feel something as his black eyes looked over. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Settlement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Settlement. When the man's gaze turned, Bai Lu's heart jumped violently. Yes, the female lead met the male lead at this time. From now on, I will see no regrets for life. All the hearts and emotions fell on this man named Qin Wushang. This is the scene here at this moment. The opponent's invincible and heroic spirit was deeply ingrained in the heart of the female supporting character who had just entered the cultivation world. From then on, firmly rooted, like a heavenly god. In order to explain the ins and outs of the story, make the character image more vivid, and make the plot more reasonable, Bai Lu remembers spending a special chapter to recall the emotional journey of the female lead after she first met the male lead. Looking back now, it's a bit inexplicable. He is really handsome, and being strong is really strong. But if we say that from then on, my heart secretly promised to remain paranoid until death, it would be a bit far-fetched. My little daughter's mentality has changed. Retract your gaze without leaving a trace. The girl's eyes have become like a pool of water, restoring calmness. Since she has become the supporting actress Bai Lu, she won't do anything foolish again. The male lead is the female lead, which is an unbreakable rule in every book, and those who do not believe in evil become cannon fodder. She's better not to challenge herself. If you can avoid it, don't provoke it. It's best for everyone not to interfere with each other. As cultivators of our generation, we should prioritize the path, and the love between children and daughters should influence our swords. Qin Wushang walked out of the mission hall and suddenly felt a surge of emotions. There was a pulling force that made him turn his head to look at the crowd. That was a young girl with a delicate aura all over her body, her emotions fluctuating slightly as her sparkling and dynamic eyes met her gaze. As a cultivator of the golden core, no wind or grass around him can hide it from him. He clearly felt that that emotion was different from the worship frenzy around him. Just as he was slightly curious, he saw the other person's sparkling eyes suddenly calm down, and then turned his head as if nothing had happened. He immediately noticed that there was no spiritual energy fluctuation on the other party's body, and when he saw the real person Yaoshi beside her, he immediately understood that this was a new disciple of the sect. Immediately, he stopped paying attention and gave a slight greeting to the real person Yaoshi, then turned around and left. And Bai Lu also followed immortal Yaoshi to Tsuiping Peak to pay respects to the 100 Flowers Fairy. After passing the list, she was assigned to the cave. As she is a disciple of the 100 Flowers Fairy, she can freely open a cave on Tsuiping Peak. Tsuiping Peak is the dojo of Yuanying cultivators and a blessed place for their cultivation. The spiritual accumulation mechanisms within it are not comparable to those of the outside world. As the spiritual root of Zhongtiandi, Bai Lu is already very sensitive to spiritual mechanisms. Although she has not yet practiced, her perception of spiritual energy is no worse than that of a cultivator during the Qi cultivation period. In her perception, the spiritual energy of Kunshan sect itself is 10 times stronger than that of the Bai family, while the spiritual energy on Tsuiping Peak is 10 times stronger than the average spiritual energy of Kunshan sect. Being in such a place with abundant spiritual energy, Bai Lu felt like her spiritual energy was seeping into her body without practicing. It is indeed a blessed place for cultivation. No wonder those outer disciples want to enter the inner gate, while inner disciples are desperately trying to enter the main peak. The difference in spiritual energy between different places is so huge. And in her perception, the spiritual energy on Tsuiping Peak seems to contain some special energy mechanism, which is very beneficial for cultivation. Just standing here, the meridians are already starting to stir. Is this the wonderful use of the land of blessings? Feeling this mysterious aura, the girl's gaze flickered slightly. In the setting of the Strongest Female Immortal, there is a distinction between large, medium, and small spiritual meridians. The addition of mysterious and unpredictable qi and spiritual mechanisms to large spiritual meridians will create a blessed land. Blessings come in different sizes. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Golden Finger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Golden Finger. According to the different spiritual and auspicious places, the power of the cultivation world is roughly divided into 3 levels. Inferior forces seek wealth, occupy small and medium-sized spiritual veins, and cannot last long. Middle-grade forces conspire with people, occupying large spiritual veins for a long time. The top-tier forces seek fortune and occupy the blessed land, which is why it will continue to thrive. The 9 immortal gates are blessed and occupy the 9 blessings, which is equivalent to controlling most of the spiritual mechanisms in the cultivation world, thus enabling them to thrive and never decline. However, the settings in novels are often used to be broken by the protagonist. The female protagonist of this book started from a dilapidated sect that did not occupy any spiritual meridians. Along the way, he rampaged wildly, with the gods blocking and killing the gods, and the Buddha blocking and killing the Buddha, overturning all the forces that oppressed him. In the end, he also abducted the most talented male cultivators from the 9 immortal sects, found the only complete cave hidden in this world, established the supreme heavenly court, and achieved the position of unparalleled hegemon. Unfortunately, just after the other party became the dominant figure, her inspiration as an author dried up, and coupled with poor grades in the book, she hastily completed it, not even having time to fill many holes. Now, thinking about it, she is incredibly fortunate. Fortunately, I ended it early. Otherwise, if we really continue to write, we will constantly enhance the background strength of the protagonist. Who knows what terrifying opponents she will encounter in the future. It's good now, at least she has a goal of self-protection. Feeling the rich spiritual energy in the air, the meridians in the body are ready to move. Bai Lu no longer hesitated, opened the restrictions of the cave, and began to cultivate. As the direct disciple of Yuanying de Jia and also a seedling of the heavenly spirit root, Kunshan sect's unique skills can naturally be freely selected. The practice she chose is called Kunyu Chongqing Jing. Kunshan sect has been passed down from ancient Qinglu gate, and the fundamental practice of Qinglu gate is the Qinglu evergreen classic. Due to the loss of the content after the golden elixir realm, this cultivation method can only be shelved. To this day, there are very few disciples of Kunshan sect practicing. Even the 100 Flowers fairy was very surprised when she heard that she had chosen this skill. However, this is not difficult for Bai Lu. As the author, she knows where the complete inheritance of the ancient Qinglu gate lies. And before the female protagonist discovers it, she has already finished it herself, which can be considered one of the unfilled small pits. Open the Qinglu Evergreen Classic and recall the key points pointed out by the 100 Flowers fairy in your mind, combined with the content of the cultivation method, to start operating the meridians. Boom! There was a loud noise coming from inside, and the girl's body was like a switch to open a valve, with countless spiritual energy and pupae entering. Surprisingly, there was no sense of gas, which directly caused entry into the body. This is the heavenly spirit root. Zhongling is handsome and naturally friendly with spiritual energy. Gradually, Bai Lu realized something was wrong. The rich spiritual energy transformed into a spiritual tide around her, forming a huge vortex of spiritual energy around her body, emitting a faint spiritual pressure. At the same time, her cultivation also entered the initial stage of qi cultivation and stabilized in the initial stage of qi cultivation. Then it reaches the initial peak, which instantly stabilizes. It quickly reaches the mid-stage of qi cultivation, followed by the mid-stage peak. The mid-stage peak is stable, and the late stage in the blink of an eye. She had already reached a peak in the later stage, and her realm was incredibly stable. Bai Lu suddenly stopped, feeling the flowing true qi in her body, her expression uncertain and uncertain. Looking at the time, it's just that an hour has passed. For an hour, from introducing qi into the body to practicing qi, the peak is stable. Practicing is even simpler than drinking water. This is not the heavenly spirit root, even the Holy Spirit root wouldn't be so exaggerated. Is this the golden finger of one's own book? The cultivation speed far exceeds that of the heavenly spirit root. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. A Peerless Genius. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. A peerless genius. The girl looked suspicious and hesitated for a moment before continuing her cultivation. The spiritual vortex around began to slowly converge again. Her cultivation was quickly completed and her realm was stable, breaking through the second level of qi cultivation without any bottlenecks in between. Afterwards, I became familiar with the way and became proficient in the second layer of qi cultivation. In the early stages, I reached the peak and achieved a stable state, until the second layer of qi cultivation was completed and the state was stable. Although the speed was slightly slower, it was still very exaggerated, and it only took 2 hours to break through the initial stage of qi cultivation and stabilize the state. At this speed, not to mention building a foundation in 10 years, she can break through it in a week. What is this concept? Qin Wushang practiced qi at the age of 12 and only built the foundation at the age of 18. It took her 6 years to build the foundation with the Holy Spirit, but she may have been less than a week. Not to mention the Holy Spirit root, even the divine root is not so abnormal. Yes, there is a divine root above the Holy Spirit root, and the highest is the fairy root. However, these were all my own settings, and before I could conceive, the book was finished. Throughout the book, there are no people with divine roots, let alone immortal roots. Only at the end of the book, in the last opportunity that the female protagonist gained, did she mention it in a few words. Even she didn't have a good idea of what a divine root would be like. But since it's over, let's put it on hold. Now, she suspects that she is the legendary fairy root. But that's not right. If I were a fairy root, how could I still be seen as a heavenly root? And she just left from the 100 Flowers fairy, so there's no reason why the Yuanying overhaul didn't notice at all. After careful consideration, the only explanation left was my own golden finger. Shaking her head and no longer thinking much, the girl quickly immersed herself in a new cultivation. The feeling of gradually improving one's own strength is very intoxicating, and it unconsciously makes one intoxicated and cannot be extricated. Quickly, 5 days have passed. In the cave, the huge spiritual vortex around the girl slowly dissipated, and unconsciously she had been practicing continuously for 5 days. Her body trembled slightly, with a shimmering water in her sparkling eyes, and a hint of restrained essence flickered away. The 12 great perfections of Qi cultivation. In 5 days, there is only one step left to build the foundation. The reason why I woke up is because the prohibition of the cave was touched by someone. And she feels that building a foundation is not that simple, it will take at least a day. After all, breaking through the 12 layers of Qi cultivation took 12 hours, or 1 day. From practicing Qi to building foundations in the early stages, it takes 1 day no matter what. As for the bottleneck and foundation building pills, she has never considered them. Opening the light curtain before the ban, I found a foundation building nun outside. Bai Lu was about to open the restriction when she suddenly thought of something. With a sweep of her divine sense, she took out a breath-restraining talisman from her storage ring and pasted it on her body. This is a restraint talisman handmade by the Bai family ancestor, which can block the exploration methods of the Jindan immortal. She doesn't want to be seen as a monster. Breakthrough in 5 days to a great completion in Qi cultivation. If it were to be spread, perhaps her master, the 100 Flowers Fairy, would not let herself go first. A Holy Spirit root has already created Qinglu, the first emperor of the 9 immortal sections. A suspected fairy root, that is no longer Qianjiao, but a monster. Qianjiao is admirable, while monsters are terrifying. She doesn't want to be the focus of the entire cultivation world. Stabilizing her cultivation at the peak of the middle stage of Qi cultivation, Bai Lu opened the restriction and walked out of the cave. Bai Shimi is really diligent. When she comes to Cuiping Peak, she practices in seclusion and doesn't miss any time. The foundation building woman smiled and said. Seeing the young girl in front of her, Zhongling Yuxiu's eyes flashed with a hint of amazement. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Qinglu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Qinglu, are you? Looking at the unfamiliar nun in front of her, Bai Lu hesitated and said. There was a hint of doubt in my eyes. I am the 8th disciple of Master, you can call me Qingfu's senior sister, the female cultivator smiled. The 100 Flowers Fairy, as the primary infant, received a total of 9 disciples, for golden elixirs, 2 to build foundations, 2 to die, and the last one was herself. Qingfu. Bai Lu has no impression, probably a hidden character in the book. Upon hearing the other person's identity introduction, she quickly bowed respectfully and said, Please pay respects to senior sister Qingfu. May I know why senior sister is looking for me? Qingfu Nuxiu glanced at her, half smiling. I have sent you a message via Feishin twice, but I haven't heard back from you, so I came here in person. Bai Lu suddenly noticed that before the prohibition in her cave, there were 2 flying letters parked, and a hint of shame appeared on her face. Sorry, Senior Qingfu, I was too devoted to my cultivation and didn't find your Feishin. Qingfu chuckled softly and blinked. I can see it, otherwise how could you never enter the middle stage of the first level in 5 days? You are truly a peerless genius of the heavenly spirit root. Your talent is so good, and you work so hard. How can you let others live? At this moment, she noticed the girl's cultivation and was slightly surprised in her heart. The secret way deserves to be a peerless genius with heavenly spiritual roots. It takes at least 5 or 6 days for an ordinary cultivator to feel the induction of Qi entering their body. And this junior sister is doing well. After a few days without seeing her, she directly infused Qi into her body and even broke through to the mid-stage peak of Qi cultivation. She heard that this junior sister had no cultivation when she joined the sect 5 days ago. In just 5 days, the cultivation has approached the late stage of Qi cultivation. This kind of talent can only be compared to Qin's senior brother from Taiwan Peak. Senior sister, I'm not here specifically to make fun of Bai Lu, right? Bai Lu also smiled. Of course not. I came to you specifically to register a track number and make soul lanterns. I informed you a few days ago that you didn't receive any news, so I had to come over in person. In addition, today the sect has opened its mountain gate, and Master respectfully orders us to accept a few miscellaneous disciples. Besides being passed down personally, Suiping Peak also has other disciples. Don't be fooled by the reputation of the miscellaneous disciples. If they perform well and are accepted as a named disciple by Yuanying de Jie, their treatment is not inferior to that of the inner disciples. In theory, making a soul lamp generally requires a foundation construction period, but as a disciple of the Yuanying major repair, the treatment is naturally different. The soul lamp does not need to be kept in the main hall of the sect, only in Suiping Peak. I saw the nun take out a blue jade slip, while Bai Lu took out a strand of divine energy and placed it inside the slip, returning it to the nun in front of her. Thank you very much, senior sister. By the way, junior sister, do you have a Taoist name? Qinglu asked. The Taoist names in the cultivation world are not so strict, but most of the people who take the names are from the sect. After all, Taoist names represent inheritance, and family cultivators naturally need to highlight surnames. Does Bai Lu in the book have a title? She didn't explain it when she wrote it. But everyone calls her the White Dew Fairy. And several of the heirlooms of the 100 Flowers Fairy, including Qingsong, Qingbai, Qingmei, Qingzhu, and Qingfu, all use their own Taoist names as their names. They were adopted by the Kunshan sect since childhood and had no family ties, completely abandoning their own names. Since you are a young generation, let's name it Qinglu. The girl's gaze flickered and she replied. After seeing off Senior Qingfu, Bai Lu returned to the cave and fell into contemplation as she looked at the restrained breath talisman on her body. Anyway, the matter of cultivating one's own speed cannot be exposed. Senior Qingfu's cultivation only involves building a foundation, so the talismans of the golden elixir period can naturally be concealed. However, Kunshan sect has countless great powers, and every peak and every hall is heavily guarded by Yuanying. As soon as she gets out of this situation, she will reveal the truth. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The True Story of Yuanying. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The True Story of Yuanying. Bai Lu's gaze flickered slightly, and her gaze fell on the storage ring and 3 storage bags. Since leaving the Bai family, she hasn't had a chance to properly organize the things her parents and the Bai family have given her. Especially the storage ring that my ancestor gave me. Previously, upon a rough inspection, there were many good things inside, any of which were the restrained breath symbols of the golden elixir period. You should know that the talismans of the golden elixir period are very precious even for the golden elixir immortal. But the ancestors of the Bai family prepared a lot for her, with various types available. Divine consciousness swept through 3 storage bags, and although she had anticipated it in her heart, Bai Lu was still stunned by the abundance of spiritual stones inside. Especially my mother's storage bag. There are not only spirit stones inside, but also piles of pill bottles stacked together. There are all kinds of elixirs available for cultivating qi, building foundations, various realms, and aspects inside. In my father's storage bag, there are more talismans, and every aspect of every realm is not lacking. Bai Lu looked at it and her heart was filled with emotion. Although they are the head and mother of the Bai family, preparing for these must have drained their financial resources. Looking at these sparkling spirit stones in the storage bag, Bai Lu felt the selfless love of parents for their children. In Bai Lu's memory, there is also a true biography of Yuanying. That was the night before coming to Kunshan sect, when her mother Qinglingsu secretly imparted it to her. As the head mother of the Bai family, Qinglu also comes from an extraordinary background and is the legitimate eldest daughter of the Qing family in the Golden Core family. The Bai family is skilled in making talismans, while the Qing family is skilled in alchemy. The inheritance of both families can be traced back to Yuanying, and they are truly a noble family. If it weren't for the nodding of the Qing family, even Qinglu, the mother, wouldn't dare to impart this true biography privately. As for the storage bag representing the Bai family, it was full of spirit stones. It seems that both the Bai and Qing families have high expectations for her as a heavenly spiritual root. Recalling the inheritance of the elixir path from Yuanying in her memory, Bai Lu couldn't help but sigh slightly. She deserves to be her top supporting role. Just stepped onto the path of immortality, not to mention a pile of elixirs and talismans, spiritual stones are all packed in bags. This starting point is almost the endpoint that most ordinary cultivators cannot reach in their lifetime. But when I think of the cheat I gave the female lead, this thing doesn't matter anymore. The divine sense penetrated into the storage ring of the Bai family ancestor, and the contents inside were relatively simplified. In addition to a few bottles of elixirs, a few jade slips, and some spiritual artifacts, the most common ones inside are talismans and spiritual stones. Especially there is a small pile of spirit stones, which is clearly different from the piles of spirit stone mountains next to them. Those spiritual stones have deep colors one by one, and the spiritual energy inside shines brightly, emitting a more abundant spiritual mechanism than ordinary spiritual stones. Is this a medium-grade spirit stone? Bai Lu muttered inwardly, thinking that her ancestor had really sacrificed enough for herself. The spiritual stones in the cultivation world are divided into 4 levels: lower, middle, and upper. The difference between the 4 grades is significant, not only in the amount of spiritual energy inside, but also in the spiritual mechanisms hidden within, equivalent to the difference between spiritual meridians and blessed areas. Lower-grade spirit stones are generally referred to as spirit stones in the cultivation world, and are also commonly used as circulating currency among cultivators. Medium-grade spirit stones can generally only be produced in blessed areas and are usually circulated among cultivators above the golden elixir stage. High-quality spirit stones are usually broken and flowing from ancient caves. As for the legendary top-quality spirit stone, it is said that it will only be born under the influence of fate when one realm is opened or when 2 realms of qi intersect. Looking at this small pile of dazzling intermediate spirit stones, Bai Lu had already felt the old man's love and care. Ancestor, I think even the coffin has been taken out. No wonder he had to hand over the storage ring to himself in front of the real Yaoshi. Perhaps it is not only the tacit understanding between gentlemen, but also a silent warning. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Divine Sovereign Tradition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Divine Sovereign Tradition. The relationship between monks is very delicate. Especially in situations where precious items are entrusted to family children. Those 3 storage bags were all handed over to him from behind by the Bai family. If the real person Yaoshi accidentally discovers what is inside, it can be said that those who do not know are not guilty. And the storage ring was handed over to the girl by the Bai family ancestor in front of her. If the other party dares to come up with ideas, it is truly a never-ending commitment. Of course, with the true nature of Yaoshi, she would not do so. The ancestors of the Bai family also guard against gentlemen rather than villains. If it were replaced with high-quality spirit stones inside, he wouldn't even take them out. After all, although the medium-grade spirit stone is precious, it will not make the Jindan immortal feel ashamed and willing to sacrifice everything. The ancestor of the Bai family also entrusted the storage ring to Bai Lu with peace of mind. I checked several pill bottles, and most of them are life-saving spiritual pills that can be taken below the golden pill stage and are extremely precious. Then her gaze fell on several jade slips in the storage ring, and she noticed that there were blood vessels sealed on them. Only the fresh blood of the Bai family's legitimate lineage can be unraveled. Bai Lu took out the jade slip and forced out a few drops of blood. Crimson blood droplets, emitting a brilliant luster, like drops of ruby, dripping into several jade slips. Divine consciousness enters. Surprisingly, it is the inheritance of talismans from the Bai family, as well as the core martial arts of the family, which can directly connect to Yuanying. Just as she scanned the last jade slip, her divine sense paused slightly, picked up the jade slip, and a hint of surprise appeared in her eyes. This is a letter left to her by the ancestor of the Bai family. The letter introduced the inheritance of the Bai family, as well as the key points and various precautions when practicing the Bai family's martial arts. Unexpectedly, the Bai family has inherited the tradition of the Divine Lord. Bai Lu's gaze flickered slightly, which even the author did not know. Or maybe it's not even mentioned in the book. Is it another hidden background? However, the letter states that due to various changes, the Bai family has lost the fundamental mental methods beyond the Yuanying period, leaving only some magical powers and experience gained from the Yuanshan realm. This is already amazing. The magical power that directly connects to the Yuanshan realm is already beyond the reach of many cultivation families. Even many small and medium-sized sects do not have a single mention of the Yuanshan realm god. The fact that the Bai family has such a background has already exceeded her expectations as an author. Bai Lu carefully reviewed her cultivation experience in the Yuanshan realm, and although most of it was unclear, what she understood was still of great help to her cultivation. After all, it was a high-level cultivator's high-altitude cultivation experience, which had a great enlightening significance for her small cultivation of qi. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. Discovered a magic technique. Divine secret technique. From a pile of magical powers. This is a magic technique that covers up the hidden breath of the soul. It is a divine skill that a god and a demon have repeatedly fought to avoid the pursuit of demons and ghosts. Being able to effectively evade detections of demons and ghosts. That's it. The divine hidden technique, even demons and ghosts can conceal it, but it can't cover up her cultivation. Taking each word seriously and carefully reading it several times, Bai Lu began to cultivate after confirming her understanding of the above content. Quickly, the first layer was completed. The girl lifted her head, and a hint of confusion flashed through her watery eyes. How could it be practiced in the blink of an eye? Does her golden finger not only affect the speed of cultivation, but also the speed of practicing techniques? Why is it so unreal? Is fairy root really so rebellious? Half believing and half doubting, activate the divine secret technique. Bai Lu quietly felt the slight floating breath on her body. It is indeed true. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Divine Secrets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Divine Secrets. Bai Lu found that practicing the divine secret technique was even smoother than practicing true qi. The entire process has no bottlenecks, and in the blink of an eye, it has become the first layer of practice. She opened her eyes and felt it carefully. Seeing that there were no problems, she stopped paying attention and resumed the cultivation process. Divine Hidden Technique Level 2. The Divine Hidden Technique has 3 layers. As Bai Lu continued to deepen her cultivation of the divine secret technique, her aura became increasingly ethereal, as if her entire being had disappeared. Externally, the Kunshan sect has opened its doors wide, and the new recruitment of disciples is vigorously unfolding. This is a major event that occurs once every 20 years in Kunshan sect. The peaks inside the gate all sent people to observe the ceremony. I want to see if there are any good seedlings and take action in a timely manner before other peaks react. Kunshan sect is one of the 9 major immortal sects, occupying a large blessed land with unique advantages and prosperous immortal luck. Therefore, every time the mountain gate is opened, people who come to join the sect are like crucian carp crossing the river. From time to time, 1 or 2 geniuses will emerge, and there may even be peerless geniuses like Tianlingen. After all, even the 9 immortal sects cannot capture all the talents in the world like Bai Lu. There are often many fish that have missed the net in the vast world. Some of them also came to participate in the introductory test. At this time, a competition for disciples takes place in front of Kunshan Zongshan Gate. In previous years, except for a few peaks such as the Refining Tool Peak and the Refining Dan Peak, the foundation building deacons or disciples of all peaks of Kunshan sect were eager to engage in a great battle. But this year is a bit different. On the enthusiastic testing square, everyone's focus is no longer on the spirit measuring pillar in front of the square, but all in the sky. I saw a tall and slender figure standing above the clouds in the sky. He just stood there and took away everyone's glory. He was dressed in black, with ink-like green threads scattered behind him. His handsome and resolute lines, and his dark clothes fluttered in the wind. He turned his back to the sunlight, his pitch-black eyes overlooking the earth, like a heavenly god emerging from the golden light. I didn't expect Qin Shu to preside over the meeting this time. On the seat representing Suiping Peak in front of the mountain gate. Looking at the man on the cloud, Qingfu, like other female cultivators, couldn't help but be stunned and lost in thought. Then, with some regret, she said, "Unfortunately, my junior sister is only focused on cultivation and cannot witness the first arrogant demeanor of the cultivation world." Suddenly, the spirit measuring pillar burst into a dazzling light. Qingfu's eyes lit up suddenly, boosting her spirits. A good seedling has emerged. Suiping Peak, Cave. After a day, Bai Lu cultivated the divine secret technique to the 9th level in one breath, and at this point, her breath had become incredibly mysterious and unpredictable. If anyone is here, it must feel strange. Although her body was there, it made people not feel her presence. It's like subconsciously, there's a power that makes people ignore the existence of a girl. This is the divine power created by the great cultivator of the Yuanying realm. Being able to silently alter the perceptions of others. The girl sitting cross-legged opened her eyes, her sparkling eyes carrying a mysterious light, as if the calm lake was shrouded in a hazy mist. The divine secret technique has been completed. Bai Lu felt the mysterious aura on her body, feeling extremely satisfied. With a movement of thought, the breath on the body fluctuated slightly, and the perfect breath of qi cultivation continued to fall, finally staying in the later stage of qi cultivation. Remove the restrained breath talisman, but her aura remains unchanged. And she has become easily overlooked as a whole. Even if the great cultivator uses his divine sense to explore, he will feel that she is shrouded in a mysterious aura, which is somewhat unclear. End of this chapter.